Okay, let's dive into this. We're talking about Vito Genovese, a guy whose ruthless ambition got him everything he ever wanted. But in this incredible twist of fate, that same ambition is what ended up triggering the downfall of the very secret world he fought so hard to rule.
Now, you gotta understand that's not a cop talking. That's not some politician. That's what his own peers, other gangsters, thought of him. Even in a world full of killers, Vito Genovese stood out. He was seen as something else entirely. So what made this guy so feared?
To really get a handle on Genovese's rise, we have to start near the end of another man's story. The night is May 2nd, 1957. Frank Costello, the powerful, well-connected boss of the Luciano crime family, is about to have a really, really bad night.
So just picture it. Costello's walking into the lobby of his fancy apartment building. Probably not a care in the world. All of a sudden, a voice yells out. A single shot rings through the air, and Costello is on the ground bleeding. But get this, he survives. The bullet just grazes his skull. This wasn't some random mugging, though. Oh no, this was a message. This one gunshot was the signal that Vito Genovese was making his play for the throne.
So who were these two guys at the center of this whole power struggle? To get the full picture, we got to rewind a bit and see just how completely different Frank Costello and Vito Genovese really were. It's like night and day.
I mean, you really couldn't invent two more different people. On one side, you've got Frank Costello. They called him the Prime Minister. He was the polished gentleman gangster, built a fortune on slot machines and political connections. For him, murder was just bad for business. And then you've got Vito Genovese, a guy who came up from the gutter, whose entire philosophy was that power comes from the barrel of a gun. This is a man who literally had another guy thrown off a roof just so he could turn around and bury his widow. Two bosses, two totally opposite worlds.
Now, Genovese was smart. He knew he couldn't just take out Costello. The other bosses would never stand for it. Not while Costello was so powerful and connected. No, Genovese had to be patient. He had to wait for Costello to slip, to show any sign of weakness. And that moment, believe it or not, came from a very new, very unlikely place. Television.
So in the 1950s, these televised hearings on organized crime were a huge deal. And Costello, always thinking he's the smartest guy in the room, agrees to testify. But he makes this one fatal error. He tells them they can't show his face on TV. So what do the cameras do? They focus only on his hands. And what the whole country saw was this nervous, fidgety hand ballet that just screamed guilt. Then, when a senator asks him what he's done for his country, his only answer is a mumbled, "Paid my tax."
And just like that, his whole aura of invincibility, poof, it was gone. Costello was a laughingstock. He went from being the untouchable prime minister to being the Justice Department's #1 target. He was vulnerable. And for Vito Genovese, who had been patiently waiting in the shadows, this was the crack in the armor he had been praying for.
See, this wasn't just luck for Genovese. He had a playbook. It was a cold, calculated plan. He started by turning the lower-ranking soldiers against Costello. Then he took out Costello's biggest supporter, Willie Moretti, by cleverly getting permission for what he called a mercy killing. He just sat back and let the federal government wear Costello down with endless court battles. And only then, when Costello was at his absolute weakest, did he finally order the hit. It was a masterclass in brutal, patient strategy.
After the shooting, Costello got the message loud and clear. He knew it was over, and he handed control of the family to Genovese. But there was a huge problem. See, there are rules, even for these guys. And Genovese had just broken a big one. You do not hit a boss without getting the okay from the commission first. So to make his takeover legit, to put the crown on his own head, he needed all the other families to officially recognize him as the new king. He called a national meeting.
So the stage is set for Genovese's big coronation. The date is November 14th, 1957, and the spot is this remote estate in a tiny little town called Appalachian, New York, way out in the middle of nowhere, far from any prying eyes. This was supposed to be his moment, his ultimate victory.
Instead, it turned into an absolute disaster. A local state trooper, a sharp guy named Sergeant Edgar Croswell, just thought it was weird that all these fancy limos were driving up to this one remote house. He'd also heard about a ridiculous amount of steak being delivered. His gut told him something was up, so he called for backup and surrounded the place. What happened next was almost comedy. You had dozens of the most powerful mob bosses in the country, decked out in their expensive silk suits, literally running through the woods, trying to escape.
And the story they all came up with? Oh, it's priceless.
Every single one of them claimed they had all, completely independently, just decided to pop in on the exact same day to visit their sick friend who owned the house. Right. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was buying it. Genovese's grand coronation had just turned into the biggest bust of Mafia leadership in American history.
And the fallout from this? Well, it was massive. Genovese had won his prize, he got control of the family, but in his desperate need for that recognition, he had accidentally exposed the entire secret organization to the entire world.
You have to understand, before this happened, the most powerful cop in the country, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, had publicly denied over and over again that a national mafia even existed. He literally called the idea baloney. Well, the Appalachian raid made him look like an absolute fool. It made his position impossible to defend.
In one single, disastrous afternoon, Appalachian woke up a sleeping giant. The FBI was forced to admit the truth, and they immediately launched a full-scale, all-out war on the mob. They set up new programs, they started gathering intel, and for the very first time, they made organized crime a top federal priority. The game had just changed forever.
And guess who became public enemy #1 for this newly energized FBI? You got it, Vito Genovese. As a direct result of the new federal focus after Appalachian, he got targeted. In 1959, he was convicted for running a massive international drug ring. He got hit with a hefty fine and a 15-year prison sentence, and he would eventually die behind bars.
So this is the ultimate, incredible irony of Vito Genovese's life. On the one hand, he totally won. He built the most powerful crime family in America, a family that still has his name on it today. But on the other hand, in that obsessive, ruthless quest to get to the top, he completely shattered the code of silence that had protected the Mafia for decades. He basically rolled out the welcome mat for their greatest enemy, the FBI.
So it leaves us with this one big question. He got the power he killed for, but by exposing the entire criminal underworld to get it, did Vito Genovese's personal victory end up causing a strategic defeat for the entire American Mafia? It's a heck of a thing to think about. The unintended consequences of one man's blinding ambition.